was I went to other, Hamilton County, I looked at theirs, you know what I'm saying? I looked at other municipalities across Ohio to try to drag that information together. So I just didn't pull it out of thin air, you know what I'm saying? I looked at other, what other,
What we do.
yeah, and so,
Looking for guys.
yeah, and so that's what I did. I went to other, Hamilton County in particular, I think in regards to the chickens. Because even there, I'm not against someone having chickens. I'm not against someone having gardens. But I think there needs to be some, regulations in their regards, you know what I'm saying, to where it can't turn into, as the one picture shows there, just a complete, really a commercial. There's talk there of eliminating all the grass and have nothing but,
Okay.
Well,
We'll need to wrap this up because we've got a very busy agenda, but anybody else have some specific questions?
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a subject that we've talked about in the past, honestly. So I don't really, I know we've discussed there, I think there's even some regulations.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, but I also have just a question. The four properties that had the deed restrictions. So are those something that you did recap them real quickly, right? What those deed restrictions were? What are those? It spells out what? No.
yeah, it specifically spells out no livestock, domestic pets only.
Okay.
And Meadowview Estates is, their covenants are similar there.
Uh-huh.
And you at least had to build a home with 1,800 square feet. No commercial type vehicles on the property. And all accessory buildings would need to be of like kind and quality of the main home. So you couldn't just throw that, what I'm saying, the one structures you're seeing there.
Another question, did your lawyers that you retained for this, did you show them these other regulations or they know about the deed restrictions, obviously?
I just found out, what I'm saying, about an hour beforehand. I think this is all going to be resolved. And actually, I ended up getting an attorney, what I'm saying, so I don't want to say too much
Okay.
legally, since I guess this is a public meeting,
Sure. Okay. So the other thing I was wanting to just kind of bring up, because I had looked up agriculture, like Kurt said, we've looked at the very same issues, poultry on different properties. I looked up I don't know why it's there, but in the definitions of our zoning resolutions, it actually says that residential areas can't have poultry. Can you look up 201?
Well, I looked through that a couple of times and I must have missed it then myself.
Up in the
It does
definitions.
not say chickens, it says poultry.
Okay.
And it's hidden under definitions, which is
Under-
really,
Of agriculture.
Okay, because
20106.
well, that's good news even. I mean, hopefully I'm keeping my fingers crossed. This is all getting resolved. It's already cost me.
Well, this has been the wording for some time. Sometimes, unfortunately, issues don't come up unless there is a problem, and as in your case. And so there's nobody out there looking to see if someone's following every regulation.
And then I tried to compromise, what I'm saying? I didn't mind if the guy had a few chickens, what I'm saying, in a reasonable fashion or whatever. I'm not, we've lived there a long time naturally and
That's just a very definition.
I know, I've brought this up before that
Doesn't say anything in the actual residential
no,
zone.
and that's what I've mentioned before, and we were going over these definitions. We have some other things in the definitions that are stated as requirements or regulations or rules that I don't think are picked up in other areas, but isn't. Say where.
The feeding or sheltering of animals or poultry in penned enclosures within 100 feet of any residential zoning district. Agricultural does not include the feeding of garbage to animals or the operation or maintenance of a commercial stockyard or.
And what that point, because she read this to what it said, number 3, what it said leading into it is that you cannot do these things. So this leading into that paragraph, it says the things are not allowed, and that's one of those.
But it's not actually addressed in
Right.
residential district.
It's not, I don't think it's addressed anywhere else in the whole document, thanks to Jim Martin's searchable
Yeah.
capabilities. Now I searched through and there's no other, I think there's one other poultry that comes up under some other issue altogether, but you're right, there's nothing in any actual
It's not
residential.
permitted or not permitted.
And like I said, really tonight, I'm not even out here so much for myself as much, what I'm saying, because it looks like, my particular issue is going to be resolved for the most part, but, I wouldn't want, someone else, you know what I'm saying? Maybe, you know what I'm saying, to, and because they, you know, they may not have deed, they're probably not gonna have deed restrictions to fall back on to kind of save their bacon, you know.
Yeah. Any other questions at this
I
point?
have a question. Whose job is it to enforce deed restriction?
Deed restrictions?
He said they have deed restrictions. So who actually enforces deed
That
restrictions?
would be, I would guess that'd be a legal issue between two neighbors, wouldn't it?
I didn't know. I'd never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, I mean, if nobody complains, if the neighbor next door or whoever doesn't
Yeah,
complain.
I mean, I enforced the
it just-
resolution, but
there's
I didn't know
nothing-
who actually.
there's nothing to
enforces deed
enforce it.
restrictions. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
I'm
didn't,
thinking HOA where,
That is, in a sense.
but HOA isn't there?
If there is an HOA, they would probably do it.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if Meadowview Estates is called is considered an HOA or something else. I think they do have a small fee.
Yeah.
And originally I thought we was gonna be part of that, but for whatever reason, we weren't included in that, but those deed restrictions is what, like I said.
All right, well, thank you very much. We appreciate your time and we will put this on, you know, into future discussions. We may be contacting as well.
Okay, all right, thank you. I appreciate your time all time. Good seeing you again, Freddie.
Take off.
Okay, so, bring this back to our agenda, doesn't it?
Previously, Mr. Pearson also had issues with the lack of fence regulations. As far as type of fencing, I'm surprised he didn't bring it up.
It's in that document that reported to us today about the chicken situation.
Yeah,
Talked
I'm
about-
surprised
learned
he
the same
didn't,
thing there
he
too.
didn't mention it because he has been in my office several times about neighbor's fence that he considers an eyesore.
It's never been there and now suddenly it's there.
Well, yes, the neighbor is building a fence. He followed the, you know, kind of vague restrictions in the resolution. He followed the height restrictions. There is nothing in the resolution about types of fencing or anything like that. And
I don't think it says anything about an easement either,
He,
does it?
no, you can put it
You
right on the
put it
property
right on
line,
the property.
which I have had, to be honest, I have had several people. There's been a lot of fences going up in German Township lately. I've written several permits for them. And there has been several issues about right on the.
I think that probably needs to be addressed for future resolution as well, because it's,
I see both sides because there's maintenance.
Yeah.
If you put it this far, you know, a foot off the property line,
Yeah.
you're counting on your neighbor to
well, that-
take care of that foot. If you put it right on the property line, is it your responsibility to do that side?
Mhm.
But from my understanding, if I remember correctly, Mr. Pearson's neighbor is putting a decent looking fence on the front and then ag fencing around the sides.
which is why his thing says no ag fencing. Yeah, he has that spelled out in his proposal.
Like I said, I'm surprised he didn't bring it up, but I would mention it because
Well, it's-
we really don't have much in the way of regulations for fencing, as long
Most
as
of it
it's
comes
within
in-
the height restriction.
Most of it's
Sean,
around
are you
pool.
saying I should have given him more time?
Most of that's under pool regulations is where fencing issues come up. When we looked into that quite a bit when we were doing.
But for regular fencing, like I said, I have written a lot of fence permits lately, and I say a lot, but I mean, for what it is.
And there have been issues about that. I don't know how long, Joe, you were on BZA, but there were some major, I think it's through BZA, there was some major, I don't know what, I'll use a very, I guess a weak word to describe, some disagreements on some properties out north of Germantown.
Is that the Harris Hafner?
I don't remember the names. I just know,
Shall not be spoken?
I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I just know there was major,
A lawsuit against the township.
oh, was there? Okay, I didn't even know that.
The one where someone put up a fence right on the creek.
I'm not entirely, that was all happening as I came in.
That may be the
I
one
know
that,
several of our officers and like Lori Rohrback and a couple of the trustees were, under lawsuit.
it wasn't the zoning commission itself. I think it was a BZA issue.
Yeah, it was a whole
Because
thing.
they had, again, big fight over types of fences that were being put up and where it was being put. It was, I think, as I recall, it was blocking complete view of something.
Yeah.
And I have, even since I've been here, without going into details too, I have heard of someone who threatened a neighbor with an ugly fence because there was issues about their dogs trespassing on the property. And they said, we'll just put up a giant fence and then you can look at it because it's more in your sight than in ours. And so it was
Yeah.
not I don't think it ever came to any kind of zoning or legal thing, but I know it was some tension.
Yeah, and I feel like that, getting into that property line, if I live next to Mr. Jacoby and the regulation says you have to put your fence a foot off the property, and he puts up what I consider to be just a horrific ag fence. And I think, oh, that's ugly. Well, I'm gonna put up my own privacy fence. Put it a foot off the property line, and I've got a nice fence. Well, then you've got 2 feet.
In
And
between.
if no one's
The
taking
jungle.
care of it, well, then that's a
Can't fit a
whole,
lawnmower through.
yeah, you can't put a lawnmower through it. You know,
Trees will
you,
grow up.
Yes.
yeah, that's a whole zoning violation nightmare, because then you gotta send to both, it's, yeah, so I feel like that's tricky.
Mhm. Oh, as are most of our issues like that, it
Yeah.
seems.
Precisely, yeah.
What is
So-
it? Do you know what it is residential? Like in town there, they have fence rules. So what is it? in-
We just have fence in general, and there really, again, is not much other than, what is it, 8 feet on the sides and back and 3.5 feet in front. I mean, there's very little, like I said, there's nothing as far as materials in certain districts. It's very vague. So I see this point, but at the same time, Mr. Pearson's talking about 5 acres. Yes, I feel like in a residential district, we probably, I do. If I live in town, and if my neighbor got a rooster and it was crowing at 4:30 in the morning. So I absolutely see his point. Do we need to limit, put restrictions on roosters in residential or number of chickens in residential? I completely see, because it is residential. It is not agriculture. But I think looking at his proposal here, he went a little more in depth than his original proposal.
Okay, I mean, the one that you passed out today, because I did. read the one
Yeah,
that we had.
because I was looking at it compared to what we had. I mean, he's talking about no planting, cultivating, harvesting. You tell me you got 5 acres, you can't have garden.
Right.
Weeds happens in gardens. I'm a busy person. I can't keep all the weeds out all the time. I do my best, but yeah, my flower beds get weeds. I think there's a fine line.
Right.
I understand it's residential and not agricultural, but
I look at it in terms of information, it's valuable because
it
there's
is.
somebody who, and I thought it was well put together in terms of, he went into detail. So
Absolutely.
that's helpful, and just to know, like we always say we want, which is true, we want to know the sentiments of people and what they value and how they feel. So in terms of a reckoning of that, I think it's very good. And we can use it for, if we ever decide to tackle some of those more, because you say you can't, it opens up a can of worms.
Well, and I look at section 3, fertilizer, only commercially packaged, odorless, non-toxic, environmentally. As a zoning inspector, I am not going out there and sniffing your fertilizer to see if it's odorless. You know what I mean? Like,
Or having labels
that is
turned.
not feasible to enforce that at all.
I-
So,
Get labels turned into you.
yeah, I'm gonna need approval for every bag of fertilizer that everyone,
In general, I think, for example, I happen to be looking at an older thing. Yeah, actually, it was from December, and I'd been looking for, and I wasn't even looking for this. It's it's highlighted here. You must have highlighted at some point, and it was saying about the aggregate mining, and it was talking about the key thing that we want to pay attention to is the purpose of protecting public health and safety. So that is a general
yes,
guideline for us is what we want to do.
that's a little easier with
That's-
something like aggregate mining.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
if
and
just wants to plant a garden, I can't tell you can't compost or.
if there's,
you know what I mean?
if there's some kind of pathogens floating across the property line, that's not good.
It's like telling me I gotta control those little floaty things that look like snow that have been floating around and killing everybody's allergies lately. Not
If
Cottonwoods.
someone was spreading pig
Cottonwoods.
manure in a residential area right next to your house, I think there should be some way to say that's not
That's,
good.
yes, but I also can't, like I said, there's a fine line. I can't, if it's organic or not.
Yeah.
Odorless, my mulch smells.
Yeah.
So
Okay, well. Any other
I
thoughts?
do see his point with the chickens and the roosters.
Yeah.
Well, I think, like I said, between good information, we could look at sometime.
I think that's all we can do is table it for right now and, table it for now and get back to it, because this has been a subject that's come up,
Yeah.
and will continue to come up.
Well, like I said, fences have been big lately. a lot of,
Yeah,
fence.
and it will be. They're relatively cheap, so people put them on.
Just one other side note on that. When I was looking today in my old, I can't believe I was this organized. 'Cause I don't usually have these organized. For some one time I went back years ago and put these in folders based on the subject that we were having this discussions. And back in 2018, Valerie had an issue about poultry farms. And there was, she had written a letter to somebody at Ohio State University about that. And they were at that point, the Ohio House was discussing this very thing about some poultry farms in residential areas or chickens. So it's been going on. I don't know if it ever got resolved. But
It's more common now because look at the price of eggs.
Yeah.
And people are putting more gardens in because of the price of everything. It's going up. So it's hard to tell people, yeah, you can't do a garden or you can't
I
have.
wonder where this problem started with the chicken or the egg.
We don't have time for that.
Definitely the chicken.
Yeah, nobody.
It's the rooster.
Yeah,
That's the rooster's
that
fault.
guy, he's yelling and then he does other things like that.
Exactly.
Okay, so would you care to give us your zoning inspector's report?
Again, a lot of fences, a few ag buildings. The Harris Road property where did I tell you about that? Where the family wanted to come in and they wanted to
Oh,
build a
yes.
family compound?
Yes.
They have backed off that. I don't know.
Dill's property.
Yep, I don't know why, but they pulled out. It is my understanding that Shane's son Ryan is purchasing his mother's house and is gonna take over some of that land. So that's become a non-issue. Never really did hear more on the Germantown, Middletown Pike ones. We've got a lot split on the horizon. I haven't got the application just yet. It's another one for Chad Gilbert. He's again, just wanting to split off the minimum of 2 acres and a rental property. He's just done with renters. Keep as much of the tillable land as he can, but he has to have that 2 acres. Other than that, it's been little stuff like that. Fences. I think I've had 3 or 4 fences in last month.
You want to let everybody know about your change of status?
We are currently looking for someone to replace me in zoning and trash. The police department is hiring me on full time. 3 departments was a lot. Chief ultimately decided that it was worth having me full time in the police department. There was an opportunity for me to go elsewhere and I chose not to, but I wanted to make it work. So, Trustee Stubbs is now the trustee over zoning. Mark Cross took a step back and they swapped because zoning is more demanding.
Joe, that was actually decided
That was at the executive session at the last trustee meeting.
session. It was announced when, you and I had left.
Because I didn't think that I didn't realize that you didn't know until I saw that you had CC'd Mark Cross on the
So
email.
we'll be talking with Jake shortly. I'm sure.
Jake is working on setting up interviews with a few applicants who have applied for the job. I told him, I get that it's a process, no rush. We want to make sure it's a good fit. So we're not going to hire until we get the right person.
And I told Sean, it's a great thing because she's going to be there to counsel and back up and everything else. So we're going to maybe
make
get
sure
kind of
someone-
like 2 for 1, so to speak.
Well, we're hoping to get somebody in here that knows what the heck they're doing with zoning. That would be nice.
Right.
Because a monkey can do trash. If my daughter can do it, then anybody can do it. And I always bring her in to help me out with trash bills. So, yeah, I told him, no rush. We want to make sure it's a good fit. Get someone properly trained in.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So that's that, I guess. You're nothing to add, I guess. Okay. Old business. We have minutes from,
we are not going to approve these minutes.
yeah. You found the issues with it?
Well, it's just not the right ones.
Somehow they got mixed in with some other minutes. I'm going to review them and bring them next time. I'm not quite sure what happened.
Is there anything that anybody can spot in here that we need to,
There's a lot.
yeah, I mean, but is there anything we need to talk about?
Well, does anybody have any notes from our last meeting? I mean, if I did, just handwritten notes that we did from the last time?
I left my binder. It's the first time I've left
I
my
found-
binder and not had it at any
Okay.
meeting.
I just see on my notes that Shauna updated us on the different things that she was doing, which is what she's pretty much talked about. I don't know what this means, but church sign, was the church sign taken care of, whatever that was?
Church sign.
Some things you were involved with, I don't know. I just wrote church.
We're getting a new German Township sign.
Oh, okay, that wasn't.
Fun.
And here's, I think all the others you mentioned, there was a problem about, one of your issues you mentioned was mulch processing, sand and
I
gravel.
have not heard anything more about
Okay.
the mulch processing.
Okay.
SRM, we're still in litigation.
Did they appeal?
No, but that appeal was from back back several months ago, right? It's not something another
They
level?
had that 30 days
Uh-huh.
and they hit it right at like day 29. They
And
did
that
it
was, how long, about a couple months ago or?
again. A month, maybe a month and a half.
You know, I think I can explain some of this October 8th, potentially. So I remember on January 1, we suspended reading of the previous minutes. Did we meet in December 2024? No. Or maybe we didn't have the minutes available. The reason I'm asking is,
That meeting got canceled, I thought.
okay, so if that's the case, if we never met after October 8th, and if we suspended reading, approval of minutes, just so we could get to our meeting with the BZA, that's the way I remember it in
We
January.
had meeting minutes from December 2nd.
We did.
Mhm.
Would we have accidentally skipped these somehow?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I
All
honestly,
right,
I'm
so
not sure.
it's more of a typographical type.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, all right.
We had one other thing I had note, you'd mentioned too, Sean, I don't know if it's a big deal. It said one resolution under industrial district processing of wood. Was that?
That was the mulch.
Oh, okay.
Someone wanted to put a mulch business in and I haven't heard anything more from that woman.
Okay, see, that's.
She was not friendly on the phone, so I'm hoping we never hear from her.
And, yeah, that's all I had from that meeting, other than we had a question about, an information finding sessions. If we did information finding sessions in our group, as long as, I think we said we could meet like a subcommittee.
Yeah,
We could-
because only so many of you guys can talk.
Yeah. That's, I mean, that doesn't mean that nothing else. Maybe I just wasn't very good at taking notes, but that's what I have from the last meeting. So I don't know. We had at some point discussed looking into, of course, the mining issue is, I think, the main thing we've been focused on.
And then there was discussion about getting that grant, but apparently that
Yeah,
grant
that's right.
came out and then it was gone.
It was I think they already had people secretly submitted it because it was
Yeah.
out and then there was no money.
Well, they had staffs. I mean, we've got a group of volunteers cobbled together with Shauna, who does 10 jobs.
I know, yeah.
So
But
that's,
that money did not last.
I mean, I got to look at the grant and see like what some of the things were, and then the next time I pulled it up, this is closed.
yeah. Well, the townships that probably need it the most had the least shot at it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it is.
Right, so
We
yeah,
talk, so.
so that was,
Okay, so
You did a lot of research on that, though. As I
well,
recall.
not a lot, but enough to know that I didn't know what I was.
Which is why we're doing
Enough to know that I didn't know.
Which is why we're looking for grants to do these things, because we all don't know how to do it.
Right.
So.
It felt terrible.
So as part of this meeting, we will table approval of
Let's do that,
the
yes.
March 4th
Mhm.
minutes.
Yes.
Okay.
There were questions though about that in that process of the grant, looking for that grant. Do you have access to the new, that newsletter is a paid newsletter?
Oh, for the township?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
yeah,
I've got-
you get that. Okay, so I didn't know.
I
you
get it
even-
almost daily.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
I mean, you can look at their website on Facebook. I did learn that but the newsletter, you have to pay for it. So I didn't know if we even had that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'll be having more time to read it. I just,
Yeah,
it's not been at the top of my inbox.
yeah.
Okay, so we will postpone approval of the minutes from the March 4th meeting. I was in error. We did not have a February meeting. It had been canceled due to illness. And June's meeting, we postponed until the following week, from the normal first Tuesday.
April?
Did I?
April, yeah.
April, from the normal first Tuesday until after you returned from vacation. When you came back, all heck had broken loose. And so we just said, we had a couple of people were out anyway, so it just didn't make sense. So here we are, 2 months later,
Mhm.
with only having had really 2 meetings this year, the organizational meeting, notwithstanding, it's, we don't do a lot for ourselves here. So really just 2 meetings. So here we are. Other old business. We had talked about a comprehensive land use plan. I was gonna look this up, but I just ran out of time. Do you have any familiarity with that, Joe?
No.
Okay. The experts who attend the Ohio Township Association Winter Conference are always striking home about the importance of a comprehensive land use plan for an overall, I guess, canvas to lay your zoning. Okay, so you look at your township and you say, well, in the future, this is where we're expecting growth. This area will probably remain agricultural for the foreseeable future. In fact, we've done this in years gone by where we said, honestly, the western part of the township is probably going to remain rural. We see no water coming in. Land development is slow, but on the east half, we've got pressure from Carlisle and Miami Township. So that's those kind of considerations. Well, and not to mention Germantown expansion. It's a city now, and they've got certain abilities to be able to annex townships. That's a big issue in many areas of Ohio. Annexation of townships, to the point where many townships don't exist anymore. Van Buren Township is long ago disappeared. Kettering swallowed it up. So, on the other hand, you have townships like Washington Township that saw it coming and they stood strong. They stood off, held off Centerville because the advantages of living in a township. And that's where I grew up, so I know the story. Just to let you know that it's something we've never done, but the county has actually got a general land use plan for the entire county and for areas. We just kind of decided to piggyback on that, for the time being until we had more time, money, resources to do something like that.
Yeah, I think the consultant who spoke to the trustees also mentioned comprehensive land use plan as part of
That's
what
right.
they do.
Yeah, they do. It's got to be a question of what the trustees see value in, what.
Yeah.
So.
How does that stand?
Yeah, what did they receive that well and
There was no discussion that Joe and I hung around for the bulk of the meeting, except for the most important announcement about Jake and Mark. But yeah, we left because you never know how long an executive session's going to go, and there was no discussion though. Was there any further discussion about the presentation?
No, sometimes they're very difficult to read.
Yeah.
The first time I introduced the sign proposals for a new German Township sign, nothing was done for months, and then all of a sudden it came back up, and they said, Shauna, we're gonna need you to get all new, quotes, after I'd already done all the legwork, because all the quotes had expired. So that was a whole process, so. Yeah, sometimes you gotta, like I said, very hard to read, sometimes you gotta stay on.
So,
What is staying on them? As in reminding or asking that it happened?
To be honest, when I did the sign proposal, it was because we had ARPA money to spend. I was like, look, this would be a great use of the ARPA funds. Well, then all the ARPA funds got used, and I was like, well, heck with it. I did the legwork for nothing. I let it go, and then on one day, it just came back up, and then
the comprehensive land use plan would be coordinated out of this commission if it was ever decided by the trustees to be something that they wanted to consider, because they would have to make that determination, honestly.
Yeah.
It wouldn't do us any good to spend a lot of time and effort into it if they.
Were they quoted a price?
No. Did that come in as any kind of a quote?
It was not a quote,
It was
it was like generalizations.
Yeah, they're gonna have, I think they'd want to hear something from the trustees back.
is that something that we can do? Is that feasible? Is it very in-depth? Have we looked at other similar townships, comprehensive use land?
I don't know that we ever did that.
I mean, I'm just wondering if it's something that we can put together and present to them, and they say, okay, yeah, sure.
Each township's gonna be unique, and that's part of the.
Yeah, but there are other townships out there similar to us. I didn't know if they had something or if they also piggybacked off their county.
Yeah, it'd be something worth finding out about Perry and Clay townships, for well, and Jackson. See, yeah, that's a good idea.
I'd be surprised if Jackson.
I would too. Yeah, they don't need one. Really, I mean, it's really a question of need, and there's a lot of zoning regulations that I'd rather put time into than comprehensive land use plan. We seem to have done fine with that for all this time, right? So,
Well, don't they come from that? I mean, I would think it could come from that type of understanding. I mean, what is zoning doing other than thinking how you're going to use your land?
that's right.
So if you have a plan, I would take it that this is something that it requires getting together and deciding what your plan is. I mean, you said they don't need it, but any township doesn't need it until they do.
That's right. Well, that's
Except in Bite,
That's right.
usually you find
I
it.
mean,
That's right.
as of right now, you look at our BZA and it's pretty clear the BZA wants to keep, farmland is farmland. Don't want residential, a whole bunch of residential and little, cul-de-sacs and all that coming in neighborhoods. For now, when we get newer blood on the BZA, who's to say there's not more? So I'm kind of with Dan, it's not a problem until it's a problem. But where does a comprehensive plan come into play with like a BZA?
It's much longer term thinking. That's what a comprehensive land use plan is. You're looking 10, 20 years out, as about as far out as you can, honestly. And then, the zoning regulations are
It's not that.
they're as permanent as you can make them, but everything's, always dynamic. You never know what the Ohio revised code is gonna come up with, so. I don't, you have anything to add to that? You were BZA, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense to have a comprehensive land use plan. Like you said, I mean, I think you said you don't need it until you need it, but I think by the time you realize you need it, you probably should have had it a couple of years before.
Dumb it down for me though. What exactly does it do? I mean, do we reference it? Does the BZA reference it when making a decision? Does the zoning commission reference it what exactly does it do? Because I really genuinely don't understand what it does.
Or what's the
What it is.
protection? Where's the protection?
I think it regulates a lot of things. It regulates like, if there is going to be any growth, where do you want it to be? And what do you want the growth to look like? And then, with respect to all these other things that, these different types of, I think the marijuana stuff is under control. But But also the strip clubs and things like that, I mean, you have to just address those things and have plans. So to be honest with you, I don't know what it does, although, I mean, other than, you're prepared for growth as it's coming rather than have the growth happen and then wish you would have done it a different way.
It's kind of like a constitution almost in a sense for zoning. You've got the overall principles, and only in this case, it's laid out by geography, really. And then the zoning regulations, the zoning resolution is almost like the bylaws in a sense. I don't know, maybe I'm dumbing this down too much for my, my non-legal language, but it seems like that's it to me. You've got this, in a comprehensive land use plan, it really shouldn't change over a period of 10 years. You might see a huge development pop up. Let's say Carlisle wanted a chunk out of German Township. As they took, this is a little known fact, they took a piece of German Township, Montgomery County, literally, went to Carlisle, even though it's part of Warren County, back in 1978. There was a deal worked out with the county engineer or something like that. I don't forget who. I discovered this with Larry Wiseman on the planning commission. He didn't know about it. And so we started asking questions. And here it was, long forgotten. It shows this chunk out of our township. And Carlisle was a city, then they dropped back to village status, and then now they're a city again. So they do have authority to do some of those things.
So I think you would want your plan to be also both protective, but also forward thinking,
That's
where
right.
you
There
want
you
it
go.
to be progressive. So you're not, you don't want your community to be dead and not with the, in stuff that we might not even know about right now.
That's exactly right, Trish. You hit it on the head. I hear so much people say, well, I just want German Township to stay the same.
Yeah, but you can't. So there has to be some progression.
And money talks,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if a farmer, gets offered $1 million an acre, what's going to happen?
No, yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah.
So anyway, okay, so that was all. There was no action, but I just wanted to bring you up to date that that's kind of what we talked about in the past. Something we need to tackle at some point here. Okay, new business. So, go ahead, Joe.
Okay.
Show's yours.
Well, what we put together here, and I don't know if everybody has a copy, but if not, I can these are revised a little bit when, we realized that there were some typos but some references to other townships, obviously, like other things, those get borrowed. So here's some copies I can pass around if there, anybody needs one. But this is kind of what enforcement looks like under the new law. And, this is just more for discussion than anything else. We need a starting point to talk about what these things might look like for us. This is, I think, we've obviously got time, obviously, and I think we didn't catch everything again. And then there's a form that can be used, but that's all the good news and where we thought we were headed. But the bad news is that we are a statutory township and we're not yet a limited home rule township. And this new zoning authority is for limited home rule townships. So that's something that German Township could become. I did a little bit, I had a telephone conversation about this on the way here, just to learn a little bit more about limited home rule townships. And, you know, the whole point is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of the township. And limited home rule township gives the trustees and, you know, through the trustees, the zoning commission, and even the police department, more authority to regulate things. And, you know, it seems like the places that need them are the places that have a concern about, or have had a lot of growth, or have concerns about, you know, growth coming in. So it's almost like, you know, right in line with, you know, if it's time to do a land use plan and start planning for the future that way, then it's probably time to consider being a limited home rule township, so that our trustees can have the authority to do the things that they need to do to, you know, to have this township be what they want it to be, what they see it can be in the future. So I think that we probably should have some conversations with them about their interest in a home rule township. If they had interest in a home rule township, it would be something that would have to be voted on by the citizens. It would have to get on a ballot. But it's, you know, it's the townships that are home rule townships tend to be those that are, you know, the ones that really, I guess, need to be because of the populations they serve. You know, for example, Miami Township became one probably 7 or 8 years ago, so maybe later than they should have. But that's, you know, that's a debate. But Westchester Township, Liberty Township, Deerfield Township, they're all home rule townships. And, you know, we're not that size, but again, you know, it's all about the needing to take care of the citizens and the welfare. So, I mean, everything is coming together, even the presentation that we heard tonight, you know, that is, you know, these are all things that I think as society evolves and you see more small farms, you see more of these, you know, different things popping up. You used to be in the agriculture area of a township, there were farms and there wasn't much else. And now there are other things. And if it could all stay farms forever, I think we would all be happy. Because I think we all kind of live here because we like that. But we don't have control over that. What we do have control over is how it's regulated as things change. And so I think we really need to think about giving our trustees more authority to consider those things, and we can help them with that. Because I did look at, you know, this process and then compared to what we end up if we don't have this process. And the process that is laid out in the limited home rule statute makes it significantly easier and significantly less expensive for the township to enforce its zoning code. So it's really more, it permits more efficient government. Would make it a lot easier for somebody sitting in Shauna's seat as well.
I saw here on the ORC, one of the primary requirements for being able to start process for limited home rule is a population of 2,500. Does anybody know if we do have that
I believe we have right
in
around
the
3,000.
unincorporated part of German Township?
I believe so. We have right around 3,000. I believe we have right around 3,000.
Okay, all right. Okay. Yeah, there's some other things, but those look doable. just gonna be a process, you know, you gotta talk to the trustees about it, they have to be willing to do it, support it. And then, you know, it's gonna have to be,
I mean, if that's something you guys really want to pursue, I would probably reach out to trustee Stubbs and see, kind of talk to him about it and see where he thinks the other ones would be.
would have to put up a referendum. The electors would have to be, you know, told why it is a benefit for them, so that they understand the value.
I think a lot of you guys are going to present things to the board. If you can get your trustee on board, an ally on the board, someone who has more information. Pass it along to the other trustee.
Okay. Noted.
Especially with Jake being slightly less involved. Jake's new to the position.
Yeah, sure.
It's a lot different than being the police trustee.
Right. There is.
Is there any known, the word's right, impediment to people being acceptable to the idea of that? Like the electorate, I'm thinking that as opposed to the trustees, but in other words, is there some cost associated? I was thinking if it's put up for a vote, it's mainly going to be, oh, is it costing us something?
No, well, I mean, based on this, it's probably will make things less expensive than if we would actually try to enforce some of these things, as far from the zoning standpoint. But I think that the only concern is usually like the what if skepticism, you know, like, oh, what are the trustees planning on doing, when really there's really no ill intent.
Right.
You know, it's all like for good purposes, but you know, people are just skeptical.
Are there any potential drawbacks to being? I mean, are there any potential cons to being?
I kind of just learned today that I didn't well, I need to study it more.
Yeah, because I don't know I literally put down to Google it.
What's the other kind you said? There was limited home
Statutory.
rule.
We are
Okay.
statutory.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm gonna Google it in the morning.
yeah.
Most rural townships,
Our statute.
let's say a few resources and lower populations are statutory.
Statutory.
Yeah, so
That's the
I really
standard.
don't know the difference.
Okay.
Yeah, it just gives the trustees the authority to do a little bit more. And with your statutory township, you can only do what the statute says you can do. And if you're a limited home rule, you can do everything except for what the statute says you can't do. So there's a gray area in between that, you know, you get all this advantage. And really it's about, you know, health, safety and welfare stuff. This home rule is called limited home rule because municipalities have home rule as well. But the township home rule is limited in that, you know, it doesn't, for example, you know, agriculture, you can't touch the agriculture, which makes sense.
Right.
As far as regulating that and some other things that are prohibited from regulating. So that's why it's called limited home.
You're not incorporated, right? Like a city.
Yeah, it doesn't change anything other than the rules.
It seems like why would we not?
So I would just, so if you're gonna put something like that on the ballot and that people are gonna be skeptical, that what I've seen is in Kettering, as far as, all I know is like from being with campaigns, with school levies and things like that, communication is what's the key. And that's
Oh,
to
yeah.
have everybody there as much as possible to hear the positives and to communicate that not only in writing, but verbally. So I don't know if that happens. You can invite people to come to the meetings, but how do you get them to come to the meeting so they hear exactly what you just said? You know what I mean? That's what's important, is that they hear it from the people that are invested in the town like they are.
Yeah, I think the reason just think of one thing there. The reason that most townships are not home rule townships is that one requirement of being a home rule township is that you have to have your own police department.
Okay.
And so a lot of townships rely on the county sheriff or a municipal police department. So that's really a major cost, but that's not one for us.
Right.
So, with this being said, what's next? How would we take this to the next step? Need to go back to your guys?
Yeah, and yeah, I think so. And, maybe see if we can learn about whether the trustees have considered this before and if there were concerns.
I told my wife, I said, in all the comments, communications, all the meetings I've attended with trustees, I've never heard them talk about limited self-rule. Have you ever?
No, I mean, which I haven't been around too long, but no.
I've never heard it brought up here, Joe.
Well, I didn't realize our population was that low. Is it possible that it was below 2,500 just a few years ago? It has grown in the township.
Sure.
We know that. So,
Well, like I said, I think the best bet is if this is something that you guys seriously want to consider, put together some kind of presentation, get with trustee stuff ahead of time. You were kind of he stands. Is if you present to the board and you have someone else if he gets on board ahead of time. Option to get. Whereas if you guys could just kind of show up and, hey, this is what we want. They kind of blank stare and nothing gets done.
Okay.
But I mean, from what little I've learned here, like I said, I
Awesome.
was gonna Google it in the morning and figure out the differences because I didn't know yet.
Yeah.
I don't see
That's what
why-
we need to
It's
show.
kind of like, why would we know?
We need to build a picture of the benefits.
Yeah, and that make a full presentation.
There may be some costs associated with it too.
Yeah.
We need to show both. Okay.
For sure.
I don't know if this includes Germantown, but it says that, the 2020 census, the population of German Township was 8,700.
Back to Germantown. I think Germantown is sitting right around just over
Well, that would be-
5,000
That would work out. Yeah, they are just
And-
over 5.
and
So
we're
that would
sitting
give
at
us
right about 3.
Yeah.
From my understanding.
Very good.
Chief Anzik a few years ago did a video about German Township, and I believe he said what the population was. I think it was right around 3,000.
Do the citizens of Germantown vote on the German Township? Like if we were to put this resolution on, would only the German Township residents vote or? would it-
Yes, I just,
I think they can vote for ours, but we can't vote for theirs, if I remember correctly.
for something on limited home rule. Joe, I was just reading something on here that it seems like it only involves the unincorporated area. There was a couple things I read out here.
Okay, well, that's something.
Whenever there's something on the ballot, I feel, and I could be completely wrong, but I feel like Germantown is able to vote for, or Germantown residents are able to vote for our stuff. We don't get to vote for anything having to do with it.
I didn't think they could vote on our issues like for this
You're
last.
completely wrong. I really don't know anything.
Well,
This last thing you just did.
Well,
The fire.
the fire EMS levy,
That was joint.
it was, but it had to be proposed. It had by the trustees. The trustees had to be the ones put it on the ballot. It could not be done in town. It didn't even matter what the town council said. So it's joint only in the sense that we're all in the township. What actually happens is the city has the fire department and in a sense, the township rents it out.
Mhm.
That's,
Yeah, all
I
that
didn't
is-
know any of this
All
stuff.
of that is so weird to me.
It is weird, but that's essentially what so the money kind of comes and that's how we're served.
But going back and somehow it's in my memory, I'm not sure. I don't think Germantown people can vote for, say, the trustees in the township.
No, I don't believe.
Oh, no.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. So they're not voting on everything that's.
Who gets to be on the?
Well, wait a minute. That I'm not sure of because there was a person from the town, from the city who was serving as a trustee here back about,
5 years ago?
yeah. Yep, and that was an aberration, but But,
Don't mention any names.
but,
Mr. Aberration.
I don't know.
but anyway,
Well played, Mr. Jacoby.
so anyway, that guy's got me.
We're never gonna get completely off board, never gonna get through the.
Oh, my, okay. Yeah, so anyway, so it was two members of the trustees were from the township and one is from the city. So so to me, that means that all three of them could be from the city. I think that's the case. Now, why it's not happened much in the past, I would imagine that you'd get virtually 100% of the township voting only for trustees from the township. And that might be enough to swing the balance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, anything else, Joe?
No.
Okay.
Does
Anybody
this
else?
then, does this go the way?
Any other new business?
I wasn't sure about what this happens with this then. Is this something that you say, we don't have to make, we're giving this to review? Is there for any reasons for that as far as input or?
I mean, just, if we're kind of delayed a little bit now, I mean, I would have wanted to spend some time going through it in detail today if this was something that could happen relatively soon, but it can't. So
I just had a couple questions, more about process probably than about what's the content. But just for one point, it's maybe something I'm not understanding, but under the last section, under 5209.15, residential fines, is that a mistake there where it says $100 and then parentheses 50, or was that just?
that's probably a mistake.
Because I noticed that's what the non-residential fines are. I have a feeling maybe that was just used and then didn't get plugged back.
Yeah.
The numerals are.
Yeah, that's what happened. They changed the numbers and didn't change the.
Okay, I was just trying to figure out why he did these. That was my question. You went through you went and edited these. And found lots of typos, you said.
This was just something that for us to consider and I had,
They were drafts.
Okay,
just take a few things and put something together for us to consider.
that was, yeah.
But now we've got Joe literally learned this just this afternoon, that we
Right.
have this primary step of putting a referendum on the ballot
Yeah.
for limited home rule. I mean, that, before anything happens, that's
So basically for now, I'm stuck sending nasty grams and hoping
Yeah.
people,
that's exactly right, Sean.
I'm getting really good at it. I've done a lot this year.
You probably do it in your sleep.
Drive-bys, drive-bys?
No complaints.
Oh, okay.
Yep, I've sent out a lot of violation letters. Fortunately, not all. Certain former employee refused to buy, but a lot of them, they take care of it. I mean, the auto salvage up there is working on their fence.
Nice.
If the dude living in the camper out on Carlisle Pike, no longer living out of the camper. I mean, just,
Most people will do the right thing if you ask,
yeah,
you know?
Was this issue cleared up over here? I see it's been vacated,
website?
no, right here on Siegel Road. Right at the top of it.
For the bacon.
I don't know what is happening.
It's been
So,
cleared out.
well, Mr. Height is ill.
Hmm.
He's been in the VA hospital for months. I
Yeah.
don't know whether he's gonna ever come home. And I'm friends with his neighbor, and she messaged me one day and said, what's going on? They're doing work on the property.
They're clearing it out. I
I
mean,
don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
yeah, someone's-
I had never actually got a complaint about the place, which shocked me.
Hmm.
The only complaint I ever got was an actual welfare concern.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
But I have no idea. I haven't driven them. I kind of forgot about it.
It's completely cleared out. I mean, they've been working on this even this past week. But I mean,
Yeah.
it looks like this.
Yeah, I can hear it. Hear the machines out there. I'll have to drive by because
Looks like they may be going to tear the house down or call that house, because it looks like the front door has been torn off.
I'm pretty sure that place should be.
Yeah,
That's one of the pretty fast. It's, I mean, it's honestly a sad situation.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's the kind of place that we really need to keep on top of.
Because, well, and I genuinely was not sure where to start because of the situation and because of Mr. Wright's help.
Yeah, right.
But it's kind of just resolved itself.
Health
so-
and Human Services can
Yeah.
help out.
Mm.
I tried reaching out to several different agencies to get him help, but unfortunately, as sad as it is, it's kind of resolved itself. I don't know who's doing that, but I know he is sick. I don't.
Mhm.
Well, thanks for doing your share there.
I tried. I
it-
was more concerned for him. I didn't want to kick an elderly gentleman off his property, but
Yeah, right.
there wasn't much I could do while he was still on the property. It was a very tough situation.
Yeah. Any other new business? Let's see, the next regular meeting, would be August 5th. That'd be the first Tuesday in August. You will not be there here. How's everybody else's schedule?
Dan, you said you will not.
What day is that?
It'll be a Tuesday, the first Tuesday.
It's like August 5th.
Mhm.
I think I can make it.
You're okay for that? Okay. Could be in Germany.
Might be on the way back. I can just see here. What move right now?
If you're on your way back, we're gonna need you to move that up a day. We need you here. So I'm just saying, it's unacceptable.
Okay,
Make it work.
and I know you write some mean letters, so.
I'm really good. Is that a violation?
Nasty, right?
Dear Mr. Lee, your accent at the.
Will not be
Hopefully
tolerated.
Dave will be back with us and, you know, Mark was just something came up quickly with his family, took him out of town, so.
Oh.
Okay, I guess,
Mr. Chairman. Move to adjourn.
okay, do I hear a second?
Fred's ready to go.
Second, all in favor?
All right.
Who
Okay.
seconded? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to say a few things. Okay,
Is,
Yeah,
is,
Gene.
is